Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming in the rain. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank the World Journal for hosting us today. I'm going to be speaking about the H-1B visa program in general, and then some of the issues that are relevant today, given the Trump administration, and some of the changes that have been proposed, and the news that we've heard about H-1B visas. The H-1B visa is one of the most popular work visas that we have in the United States in our immigration system. It's most often used by F1 students after they graduate and they have their OPT. It's the visa that they transition onto. Every year, the United States gives out 85,000 H-1B visas. Of those 85,000, 20,000 are reserved for people who have a master's degree from a U.S. institution. So there's really 65,000 for people who have a bachelor's degree. Of those 65,000, 6,500 are given to people from Chile and Singapore, so there's even less. So with a strong economy and a very high demand for the visas, it's becoming increasingly difficult to get H-1Bs. In 2016, there were 240,000 applications for 85,000 visas. And then this year we had 199,000 visas filed for 85,000 slots. So it's increasingly difficult to get H-1Bs, and so it's very important to plan in advance. We always encourage students to speak to their foreign student advisors as early as possible to get a handle on the visa process. The filing period for H-1Bs is the first week of April. So our firm will typically start working on H-1B visas in January, February, so that we have the petitions ready to be filed the first week of April. There's a 5-day filing period that the petition needs to be sent. And that's basically it. That's the window that we have to file the petition. H-1Bs are the maximum amount of time that you can have an H-1B visa is 6 years. When you file the H-1B, you request 3 years of employment initially. After that's approved, you're allowed to extend for another 3 years, and then there are some circumstances when you can extend beyond the 6 years if you meet these certain factors. People who are married or have children under the age of 21, their families also get H-4 visas. And some of those H-4 visa holders for spouses now, based on some changes that Obama made before he left office, are able to work, which is a fairly recent development. So we're going to talk about some of the changes to the H-1B visa program. And before I get into some of the changes that the Trump administration has proposed, we'll go over some of the changes that took place during the Bush years and also Obama. So I mentioned that there's a maximum period of 6 years of H-1B. But during the Bush years, they made a tweak to the program where any time that a person spends outside of the United States is not counted towards that 6 years. So I always tell people who have H-1B visas to keep a very detailed history of all your travel abroad, because you can actually recapture that time. And it can be very important for people who are filing green card applications. So it's not actually a fixed 6-year period. It's 6 years plus any time that you spend outside of the United States during those 6 years. When you change employers after you have an H-1B visa, we used to have to wait for people to start working with a new employer until the petition was approved. During the Bush years, they made a change to that, and a person who has an H-1B and is changing jobs can actually start working now the day that the H-1B petition is filed. When a person has an F1 student visa and is working with their OPT that they're given after their program ends, if you file an H-1B petition and it's selected by USCIS for processing, you can actually extend your OPT work authorization until October 1st. And that's, a change that took place probably about 10 years ago. And a lot of students now who have OPTs that expire in June, July, or August when their petition is selected and they get the receipt notice, they go to their foreign student advisor and they get what's called CAT gap. And it allows them to extend their work authorization until October 1st, so there's no gaps and they don't have to come off payroll. There's something called AC-21, which allows a person who is in the process of applying for a green card to extend beyond the 6-year limitation on H-1B visas if their green card application has been in process for at least a year. So because of this rule, and certain countries have backlogs in the green card process, like China, for example, has a 1 to 2 year backlog with their green card applications, and India has even much more of a backlog. We encourage people who have H-1B visas to start the green card process during their 3rd or 4th year so that they make sure that it's in process for at least a year by the time they get to their 6th year. That way they can extend in 1-year increments until their green card application is completed. If a person has an I-140 petition approved, and that's one of the steps in the green card process, that 1-year extension is actually increased to 3 years. So it's very important when you have an H-1B visa not to wait until the end to start the green card process. So typically the 3rd or 4th year is a good time to do it so that you can make sure that you can extend the H-1B comfortably until you get the green card. Now, one of the things that Obama did towards the end of his 2nd term of his presidency was to allow H-4 spouses to apply for work authorization. This is a very big development. It helped lots of families who were basically relying on one income to have a spouse now with an H-4 visa who can apply for work authorization. So if you start the green card process and you get past step 2, your spouse on an H-4 visa can go and apply for a work authorization card, which is blanket work authorization, allowing the spouse to basically work in any capacity that they like. So they can work part-time, full-time, it doesn't really matter. Occupation, there's no specific education requirements, and it helps a lot of families out. One of the things that we're concerned about that might be changed is that the Trump administration has talked about revoking the H-4 work authorization for spouses. So it's something that we're keeping an eye on, and if they change that, it will hurt families for sure. A very recent development in 2017 with H-1B visas is to provide workers with a 60-day grace period. In the past, we would have people come to our office who had an H-1B visa and were let go, ask us how much time did they have to leave the United States or to file for another visa, excuse me, and the rules and regulations don't mention a specific time period for doing that. But now they've instituted a 60-day grace period. So if for some reason you're let go while you have your H-1B, you now have 2 months to look for another job while you'll be considered to be in status and be able to comfortably file a change of employer H-1B petition. So that was a very big positive that we got. It happened early in, I think either late in 2016 or early 2017. One of the things that we're hearing is going to happen a lot now with the new administration is an increase in the number of site visits. Under the Obama administration, they hired approximately 2,000 contractors to go out to H-1B employers and check to see that the employees were there. So if you have an H-1B visa and you're working somewhere, you need to be prepared for the possibility that immigration might come knocking at the work site to make sure that you're there, make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, getting paid the wage you said you were going to be getting paid. And we're also hearing that there's going to be a much higher percentage of cases that receive a request for additional evidence. So when your lawyer is preparing your H-1B petition, you need to make sure that it's done as comprehensively as possible because there's a good chance that immigration is going to request additional evidence on certain issues they think are important, most likely whether or not the position requires a certain degree for the occupation. So, some of the changes that the Trump administration has been talking about, and it's been in the news quite a bit, is that there's going to be a complete review of the H-1B visa program. It has not happened yet. There are no specific rules in terms of a total overhaul of the program, but they're going to review the program for what they think might be potential abuses. But nothing specific has happened on that. As I said, there's going to be an increase in the number of site visits and auditing of employers. So if you're an employer that has filed H-1B visas for people, you can expect that immigration might come knocking on your door and make sure that your employees are working in the capacity that you said they would be working in. So we tell employers and employees alike to make sure that everything that you have online, all the information that you have online with your social media, your LinkedIn profile, your company website is consistent with the H-1B petition. When people are traveling and they come back to the United States, the CBP officers now increasingly will jump online to confirm that the information that you provided in the petition is consistent with what you have out there and the footprint that you have online. So position titles, worksite locations, all that information needs to be consistent. Otherwise, they can find that you're violating the terms of your H-1B status. They're also talking about increasing the wage requirements. For an H-1B visa, part of the petition process requires that the employer confirm that the employee is going to get paid a wage which is similar to what other U.S. workers in the same geographic area get paid. We're talking about doubling that wage requirement for people working in the computer science fields. What they're concerned with is that there are companies that are importing tech workers from abroad and then outsourcing them to third-party employers. So they're going to be doing some things and making some changes to the H-1B visa program to curb that and to make it more difficult for these organizations to bring in thousands of tech workers from abroad who are really going to be outsourced to another company to work. And so one of the things we're proposing is increasing the wages significantly to make it more difficult or less attractive for companies to do that. And they're going to also be doing more site visits to make sure, again, that people are complying with the terms of the petition. One of the issues that they wanted me to speak about today was the rights of H-1B workers. In addition to the 60-day grace period, an employee who has an H-1B visa, if for any reason they're let go, the employer is on the hook for the cost of their return home. So the immigration is deemed that to be whatever the cost of a one-way plane ticket would be. So if you're an H-1B employer, you need to be aware of the fact that if for whatever reason you end your relationship with that employee, you do have to pay for the reasonable cost of that one-way plane ticket home. Also, the employer must notify immigration that the H-1B visa holder is no longer employed with the company, so that immigration can go into their system and update it so that it's part of their database and that that person cannot be basically floating around in the United States. If the employer doesn't do that, you can be held responsible for all of the wages until you do it. So we've seen situations where the employer lets go of an H-1B employee and doesn't report it to immigration. And a couple of years pass by. The employee actually has the right to go to the Department of Labor and request that they're paid those back wages, which, as you can imagine, can be a very significant amount. Employers have been held responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars for back pay because they did not notify immigration that they let go of the employee. We don't anticipate that the H-1B visa program will be scrapped or that it will be eliminated. It's used way too much. It's really an add-on to people who are coming here as F1 students, and their OPT is only valid for 12 months. So when they get job offers, the H-1B visa is really the go-to visa for these people. So while there might be some tweaks, most of the changes to the program are really going to be focused on tech workers who are being brought from abroad to work in the United States. People who are here on F1 visas, who graduated from a U.S. institution, are getting job offers, direct job offers from employers here, really don't have too much to worry. They might increase the wage requirements, but they're not going to eliminate the program, and they shouldn't. We don't anticipate that they'll do anything to make it difficult for F1 students to get job offers to stay. We saw a pretty substantial decrease in the number of petitions filed this year. It was approximately 25% less petitions, and we think that's because employers are finding it so difficult and so expensive that they're getting a little bit discouraged. But that actually helps the students who are filing. Their percentages of being selected are actually going up. That's the H-1B visa today in a nutshell. If you have any questions, maybe we can do a Q&A session now.
Hi, Mr. Emre. Thank you for your speech, and I actually have one question.
Sure.
So, since I am also an international student with an H-1B, application on file currently, so I'm wondering about when every year. So, it is the due time I can get my H-1B, success, the notice of success, the application, and so it is received from USCIS. What will be the due time?
So we start working on the petitions in February and March. The petition needs to be mailed to immigration the first week of April. We find out typically if a petition has been selected or not by the second or third week of April. Actually, we're still finding out now. I think last week was the last week that we're hearing back from immigration. When the petition is approved, the H-1B visa starts October 1st. October 1st is the beginning of the U.S. government's fiscal calendar, and so that's when the new petitions start. So if someone has OPT as a part of their F1 visa, those OPTs usually expire in the summer. So if your case is selected, you take your receipt notice, you go to your foreign student advisor, and your foreign student advisor in the SEVA system extends your OPT work authorization until October.
Okay, since I still haven't got the latest status of my application, what will be the time? If I do not receive the notice, by the end of May or
by the end of May, I would say you need to start thinking about other options.
Going home. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry.
Is H-1 visa only for a certain type of job, or like a chef or nanny as well?
No, that's a very good question. H-1B visas are for jobs which normally require at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field. So it's not for every type of job. It's for jobs which require at least a college level education. But even within that, it needs to be a job that requires a degree in a very specific field. So it can't be for a job where the person studied history, but it's a finance job. There needs to be a correlation between what you studied and what your job is. Any other questions?
还有问题吗 ？Okay.
Actually, I have a question concern about applying for the green card. If my dream job is like financial advisor, is it possible for me to apply for the green card? If so, is it have the strict or specific standard for the wage or any other requirements?
So you're a financial advisor, is that what you said?
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
you have an H-1B now?
Yes. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 5 categories for getting a green card through work, but most people use 2. They're called EB2 and EB3, employment-based second preference category and employment-based third preference category. EB2 is for jobs which normally require a master's degree, and EB3 is for jobs which normally require a minimum of bachelor's degree. So your employer could probably, I would need to look at the details of it, but your job, your employer could probably file a green card application on your behalf. They need to go through a process where they try to recruit the U.S. worker, but are unsuccessful because they couldn't find anyone with the qualifications that the job requires. There is a specific salary requirement similar to the H-1B. So first, the Department of Labor will tell the employer what that salary needs to be. So there's a process similar to H-1B, but the requirements are a little bit more stringent. It takes a while to do, and it takes a lot of planning, and it usually takes a good year to get past the first stage with the Department of Labor. So that's why we usually recommend people start that process in the 3rd or 4th year, so that you can make sure that you can extend your H-1B beyond the 6 years. But I would think that a financial advisor position would normally fall in the realm of a job that can support a green card.
OK， 还有问题吗？我们那边的观众有没有问题 ？OK， so Mr. Emre, so will you mind? I mean, if our audience has specific questions, they can come to you later.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our firm has had a very long relationship with the Asian community, and our policy is to offer short, brief initial consultations free of charge, and we're more than happy to do that. I suggest that people ask as many questions as they possibly can, and to start the process as early as they can, so that you can do it in an orderly way. In spite of all the negative rhetoric that you hear in the news, it's very rare that if someone wants to stay in the United States, has a job offer, is a college graduate, that we can't find a way to keep them here and get them work authorization.
Thank you, Mr. Emre. 让我们掌声送给我们的 Mr. Emre. Thank you.